Olivia walked into the lawyer's office, her hands cold even though it was warm inside. She was 28, dressed in plain black clothes, her hair tied back simply. The room smelled like dust and old paper. Her heart pounded in her chest. Her father was gone. No more chances. No more letters. No more hoping he might call. Her mother, Carol, sat by the window, legs crossed, face sharp and cold. She looked Olivia up and down and gave a bitter laugh. "Still a waitress," Carol said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Guess some things never change." Olivia didn't answer. She just sat down quietly across from her. Dana, her father's second wife, sat beside Carol, lips tight in a smug smile. She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to. Her eyes said enough, full of judgment and victory. The room was silent, except for the ticking of a small wall clock. The lawyer, a grey-haired man named Mr. Beckett, cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses. Papers lay in front of him. The will. Olivia tried not to look at the others. Her parents had been divorced for years, but they still seemed to enjoy hating the same person. Her. She had been the golden girl once. That was long ago. Now they saw her as the failure, the black sheep, the girl who walked away from everything they wanted her to be. Carol smirked and whispered to Dana, who chuckled softly. Olivia stared at the edge of the desk, her nails pressing into her palm. They all expected the same thing, that she was getting nothing. Her father had cut her off 5 years ago. No calls, no money, nothing. "I will now begin reading the last will and testament of Charles Everett," Mr. Beckett said. His voice was low and careful. Everyone straightened, eyes fixed on him. Olivia's stomach turned. Carol leaned forward slightly, already pleased. Dana looked like she was trying not to smile. They knew what was coming, or so they thought. Mr. Beckett continued reading the opening lines. Formal words. Legal talk. Olivia barely heard them. Her hands trembled in her lap. Then something changed in the lawyer's tone. "To my daughter, Olivia Grace Everett," he read. All the smiles vanished. Olivia's eyes snapped up. "I leave the entirety of my estate." Carol's mouth dropped open. Dana blinked, stunned, including assets, properties, and personal effects. The room froze. No one moved. No one breathed. Olivia stared at the lawyer. "What?" she whispered. Mr. Beckett looked up, his eyes kind for the first time. "Yes, he left everything to you." Olivia used to be the pride of the family. Smart, polite, hard-working. She had once been on her way to an Ivy League college. Her teachers loved her. She always helped others and never talked back. Everyone thought she was going to be someone important. Her father, Charles, would proudly introduce her to his friends. "My daughter, Olivia," he'd say, "top of her class." Her mother, Carol, dressed her up for events and told people, "She's the perfect one." But Olivia was never allowed to choose her own path. Her parents had plans for her. Law school, high society, marrying someone wealthy. They wanted her to follow their rules, speak their way, live their version of success. At first, Olivia tried. She worked hard, kept quiet, and smiled when she was told to. But deep down, she felt trapped. Everything changed when she was 23. She came home early from college one weekend and saw something she wasn't supposed to see. Her father kissing his assistant, Dana. At first, Olivia said nothing, but she couldn't live with the lie. She told her father she knew, and he begged her not to say anything. She told her mother anyway. Carol didn't thank her. She exploded. "You're just like him," she said, "trying to hurt me." Her father was worse. "You ruined everything," he said. "You're ungrateful." He married Dana soon after, and Olivia was pushed out of the family completely. No more money, no more phone calls, no more home. Olivia thought her mother might soften, but Carol only became colder. "You betrayed me," she said. "You always thought you were better than us." So Olivia left. She bounced from place to place, working in cafes, cleaning offices, walking dogs. There were times she couldn't pay rent and slept in her car. There were days she had to choose between gas and food, but she never gave up. She kept going, one step at a time. Over the years, she found a little apartment, made friends, learned how to live without help. She didn't have much, but she had her own life. Still, she missed her father. Even after all he did, she missed him. She kept a photo of them from when she was 8, him holding her at the beach, both of them laughing. Sometimes she would look at it and wonder if he ever thought about her. A year before he died, she wrote him one last letter. She said she didn't want anything from him. She only wanted to know if he still loved her. She left her phone number at the bottom. He never replied. When she heard he was gone, she felt nothing at first, just silence. Then came the ache, the weight in her chest that wouldn't go away. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat alone in her room for a long time, staring at the wall. She didn't come to the will reading for money. She came for answers. Maybe, she thought, she'd find something in his last words. Maybe there was a reason he never wrote back. Maybe he had wanted to. She wasn't sure. She just needed to know. Now, sitting in that cold room with her mother sneering and Diana looking proud, Olivia didn't feel strong. She felt small, like the girl who used to stand outside her parents' bedroom door, afraid to knock. But she sat straight, kept her hands still, and waited. She didn't expect anything, not forgiveness, not kindness, and definitely not money. She had made peace with being forgotten, but she had come anyway because something in her still hoped. The room was quiet except for the sound of papers turning. The lawyer, Mr. Beckett, took a deep breath and looked around the table. "I will now read the details of Mr. Charles Everett's will," he said. Olivia sat still, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Carol leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed, looking ready to enjoy the moment. Dana looked bored but confident. Mr. Beckett looked down at the paper and began reading. "To my daughter, Olivia Grace Everett, I leave the entirety of my estate." Everyone stopped breathing. Carol sat up straight. "What?" she snapped. Dana's mouth dropped open. "That can't be right." The lawyer kept reading. "This includes all property, savings, investments, and personal belongings." Olivia blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. She looked around the room. No one spoke for a moment. Then Carol jumped to her feet. "This is a joke!" she shouted. "She hasn't spoken to him in years!" Dana leaned forward, her voice sharp. "You need to read that again." Mr. Beckett held up a hand. "There's more," he said. Mr. Everett also left a video message. He reached into a folder, pulled out a small remote, and pointed it at a screen on the wall. The screen lit up. There was Charles, sitting in a chair, speaking directly to the camera. "If you're watching this," he began, "then I'm gone, and you're probably all surprised." His voice was calm, but his eyes looked tired. "I've made mistakes. I pushed people away, but there's one person who never lied to me, one person who told me the truth when no one else would." He paused. "Olivia." The room went silent. "She didn't want anything from me. She just wanted me to be better, and I couldn't see it then. But I see it now. She's the only one who never used me. That's why I'm leaving everything to her." The screen went black. Olivia sat frozen. She couldn't speak. She felt like the air had been knocked out of her chest. "I need to go," she whispered, standing up. But before she could walk out, Carol grabbed her arm. "You planned this, didn't you?" she hissed. "You got to him somehow." Olivia pulled her arm away, but Dana stood too. "This isn't over. There's no way he chose you over us." Olivia backed away, her heart pounding. "I didn't ask for any of this." "Oh, but you took it," Carol snapped. "Little liar, pretending to be the victim." The room exploded with shouting. Everyone was talking at once. Carol yelling, Dana demanding answers, the lawyer trying to calm them down. Olivia turned and rushed toward the door, pushing through the noise. Outside in the hallway, everything was quiet again. She leaned against the wall, her legs shaking. Her father was gone, but his voice had just called her the only one who never used him. She didn't know what to feel. Shock, sadness, anger. It didn't feel real. She had come for closure. She never expected this. The days after the will reading felt like a storm Olivia couldn't escape. It started with a phone call. Carol had hired a lawyer and was going to court to fight the will. "It's fraud," she claimed. Olivia must have tricked him. He wasn't thinking clearly. Olivia stared at the court notice in her hands, her stomach twisting. She had done nothing wrong, but now she was being treated like a criminal. Then came Dana. Unlike Carol, Dana didn't go to court first. She went to the press. Olivia's face was suddenly in newspapers and online articles. Headlines called her the forgotten daughter turned gold digger. Photos of her outside the lawyer's office appeared everywhere. Some people said she must have blackmailed her father. Others said she had been pretending to be poor to make him feel guilty. Reporters waited outside her small apartment. Cameras followed her to the store. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. At first, she tried to ignore it. She kept her head down and went to work as usual. But it didn't last long. Her boss called her into the back room one day, looking nervous. "I'm sorry, Olivia," he said. "You're a good worker, but this is too much attention. Customers are complaining. The owner says we have to let you go." She left the cafe in silence, holding her last paycheck in one hand and her apron in the other. She didn't know where to go. Her apartment didn't feel safe with reporters outside. Her phone was full of messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Some were kind, most were not. The worst came from Jason. Her younger brother had always been the only family member who didn't turn his back on her. They didn't talk often, but when they did, it was warm and honest. He had visited her when she was struggling and even brought her food when she had no money. But now, even he had something to say. "You should give them some of it," he told her one night over the phone. "Maybe not all of it, but some. It might calm everything down." Olivia's heart cracked. "You think I don't deserve it either?" "I didn't say that," Jason replied. "I'm just saying, it's a lot of money, and their family too." "Were they family when I was sleeping in my car?" she asked quietly. There was silence on the other end. Then he said, "I don't know. I just want this to end." That night, Olivia sat alone in the big empty house her father had left her. The rooms were quiet, full of expensive furniture and untouched space. It didn't feel like home. It felt like a museum filled with someone else's life. She broke down in the kitchen. She cried harder than she had in years. Not because she was afraid of losing the money, but because she felt completely alone. Later, she started going through the old boxes stored in the study. Most were filled with boring papers, business files, or dusty books. But one box was different. Inside were several old notebooks. Her father's handwriting covered the pages. They were journals. She opened one and began to read. Page after page, she saw a side of him she had never seen before. He wrote about his regrets, his mistakes, his confusion after Olivia left. He admitted he had been cruel, that he had pushed her away because he was ashamed. "She reminded me of who I should have been," he wrote, "and I hated her for it." Another entry said, "I thought I was protecting her by cutting her off, but I see now that I was only protecting myself." Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she read more. Her father had loved her. He just didn't know how to show it. Tucked in the back of one journal was something strange, a folded piece of paper. It was another will, written by hand, but not signed. It looked newer than the one the lawyer had read. In this draft, her father had still left most things to Olivia, but there were changes. A few items were to go to Jason, a sum of money for a charity, and a note in the corner that said, "Must talk to Beckett about this." It wasn't legal, but it was real. She stared at it, wondering what it meant. Did he change his mind at the last minute? Did he plan to be fairer, but never got the chance? She held the paper close, feeling both comforted and confused. Maybe he had been trying to make things right. Maybe he had simply run out of time. The pressure around her kept building. Lawyers, reporters, angry relatives, people knocking on her door, people shouting at her online, people asking for interviews, for statements, for money. Olivia didn't want to fight, but it seemed like that was all anyone expected from her. All she had wanted was a goodbye, a quiet moment of peace, maybe some understanding. But now she was in the middle of a war, and she wasn't sure if she had the strength to win. The courtroom was quiet when Olivia walked in. Her hands were shaking, but she held her head high. The room was full of people, lawyers, reporters, strangers, but it was the faces at the front that made her heart beat faster. Carol sat straight in her chair, cold and sharp as ever. Dana sat next to her, whispering into a lawyer's ear. The two women, once enemies, had joined forces. Now, they were trying to prove that Olivia had tricked or forced her father into leaving everything to her. "She took advantage of him," Dana said on the stand. "He wasn't well. He was confused. She came back at the end, pretending to care, just to take his money." Carol nodded as her lawyer spoke. Charles was a proud man. He wouldn't have left everything to a daughter he hadn't spoken to in years, unless she pushed him. Olivia sat still, listening. It felt like being hit over and over, but she didn't flinch. Then Jason walked in. She hadn't seen him in days. Her heart lifted for a second. Maybe he had come to support her. Maybe he would tell the truth. But when he took the stand, he wouldn't look at her. "I think my dad loved Olivia," Jason said, staring at the floor. "But I don't know if he was thinking clearly when he changed the will. She came back into his life very suddenly. It just all happened fast." Olivia's mouth went dry. Her own brother, the one person she had trusted. He hadn't lied. But he hadn't stood up for her either. His words gave their side power. She felt like the ground was falling away beneath her feet. When it was her turn to speak, Olivia stood slowly. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I didn't force anything," she said. "I didn't even know he left me the estate. I wrote him one letter a year before he died. I didn't ask for anything. I just wanted to know if he still loved me." The room was silent. Then Mr. Beckett, her father's lawyer, stood up with a flash drive in his hand. "We have something else to present," he said. A screen was brought forward. Everyone turned to watch. The video began. It was her father, Charles, sitting at his desk, speaking into a camera. He looked tired, but calm. "If you're watching this," he said, "then they're trying to take what I left behind. They're probably saying I wasn't thinking clearly, that I was confused." He looked into the camera. "I was not confused. I was just scared. I made a lot of mistakes in my life. I let pride and fear keep me away from the person I loved most. My daughter, Olivia." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. "She told me the truth when no one else would. She stood up to me when others only smiled and stayed silent. That took courage. I pushed her away because I couldn't face what I had done." He paused, looking down for a moment. "Olivia, if you're watching this, I hope this helps. I wasn't brave enough in life. I'm trying to be brave now." The video ended. No one spoke. Carol looked frozen. Dana stared at the ground, her face pale. Then, without warning, Carol stood up and walked out of the courtroom. Dana followed, but not before glancing at Olivia, this time with something that looked like shame in her eyes. The judge spoke a few final words, confirming that the will would stand. The estate was Olivia's. The fight was over. But as Olivia walked out of the courtroom, she didn't feel like she had won. She felt empty, tired. Her father was gone. Her brother had turned against her, and the family she once had was never coming back. Outside, the sky was cloudy. Reporters tried to get her attention, but she ignored them. Her heart felt heavy, full of words she couldn't say. She had the house. She had the money. She had the truth. But none of it brought her peace. She stood on the courthouse steps, closed her eyes, and let the wind blow through her hair. A single tear rolled down her cheek. It was over, and now she had to decide what to do with the life left in her hands. The house was too big and too full of memories. Olivia walked through each room one last time, touching the walls gently, looking at the things her father had left behind. Some items she kept, a few old books, a small photo of her as a child on his desk. But most of it she let go. She sold the house and most of the estate. It wasn't an easy decision, but she knew she didn't need all that money or space. What she needed was something more real, more honest, something with a purpose. With the money, she started a non-profit organization. It was small at first, just a few rooms in an old building downtown. But the mission was clear: to help young women who had been kicked out of their homes, disowned by their families, or left behind. She named it New Roots, a place where girls could feel safe, get help, and build new lives. Olivia worked every day, cleaning the floors, writing emails, setting up food drives, and planning programs. Slowly, the space came to life. Furniture was donated, volunteers showed up, and the first group of young women walked through the door. Some were scared, some were angry, but Olivia understood. She had been one of them once. She didn't try to fix everything. She just listened. She gave them what she had needed once, someone who believed in them. One afternoon, as she was sorting clothes in the donation room, someone knocked on the front door. It was Jason. He looked nervous, holding a paper bag in one hand and avoiding her eyes. "Hi," he said softly. "I brought you lunch." She paused, then nodded. "Thanks." They sat outside on a bench and ate in silence for a few minutes. Finally, Jason spoke. "I'm sorry," he said, "for what I said in court, for not standing up for you. I was scared. I didn't want to lose everything." "I know," Olivia replied. "You don't have to explain." He looked down. "I miss you. I miss you too," she said gently. "But I need space right now." Jason nodded. "Okay, I'll wait." They hugged quietly before he left. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Olivia's life slowly found a rhythm. She spoke at events about her journey. She shared her story with others who needed hope. She worked hard, and for the first time in years, she smiled without pretending. One day, she drove out to the cemetery alone. The sky was soft and grey, and the grass was still wet from morning rain. She found her father's grave and stood in front of it, holding a small flower. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she placed the flower on the stone and whispered, "I forgive you." She didn't cry. She didn't feel broken, just calm. As she walked back to her car, she felt something lift inside her. The past would always be there, but it didn't control her anymore. She had found her way forward. One quiet morning, Olivia went through the mail at her apartment. Most of it was junk or bills. But one envelope stood out. It was old, a little bent at the corners, and the stamp was faded. The postmark said it was sent over a year ago. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a letter. Her father's handwriting filled the page. Neat, but a little shaky. Dear Olivia, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't even know if I'll have the courage to send it, but I need to try. You were always the strongest person in the room, even when you didn't feel like it. I wish I had been brave like you. I made many mistakes. I let pride get in the way. I let other people's opinions make me push you away. I was wrong. I see that now. I hope one day you'll understand. I loved you more than anyone. I just didn't know how to show it. Love, Dad. Olivia sat at her kitchen table and held the letter to her chest. Tears ran down her cheeks, but they weren't the kind that hurt. She wasn't crying from sadness. She was crying from release, from the weight finally lifting off her shoulders. She folded the letter and placed it in a small box with a few other special things. Later that day, she walked into her non-profit office. The sun was shining through the windows. The air smelled like coffee and warm paper. People moved through the halls, laughing softly, helping each other. At the front door, a young girl stood with a backpack, looking scared and unsure. Olivia walked over and smiled kindly. "You're safe now," she said. And she meant it, because now she finally felt safe too. Do you think Olivia made the right choice by walking away from her family and starting over on her own? Or should she have tried harder to fix things with them? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want more emotional stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new one.